In our modern time and modern days, we are now living in what we call a matriarchal society, where the dominant person in the home is the woman due to single parenting and certain social construct. But nevertheless, in spite of the negativity or the positivity of it all, we can all assure that the power of mothers played a significant role in society. If it wasn't for mothers, our society would collapse. If it wasn't for mothers, the love that mothers show towards their children, in spite of, even when everyone turned their backs, the love of a mother stays true to their children. If it wasn't for the love of the mother, when people give up on you because of the sustaining love and care of a mother, you find a way to pull through, and your number one cheerleader that you have in your corner when all else or everyone is against you is always your mother. A mother's love can be a conundrum. At one time, a mother can be the most harsh, the most brutal, not in a bad sense, but very plain, very outspoken, very harsh with their children. But at the same time, with all the harshness and with all that force behind her towards her children, she is the most loving and most caring in the same instant. Never play with a mother's child. Never touch a mother's child. Only let the mother take care of her children. Mothers are very harsh sometimes in their tone. But let me tell you something. Do not touch her children. The same time she will give her life for the same child that she at times seems in her loving way come across sometime harsh, to try to mold and shape. And sometimes that's what molding do. Sometimes there's some harshness to the molding process. But at the same time, as I said, do not touch a mother's child. Good morning, saints, and welcome to the Dixon's Devotions. Today we are going to take a pause from the book of Psalm, and we are going to talk about mothers. And in particular, one of the most intriguing parent or mother and wife in the Bible is the story of a woman named Zipporah. And many of you cannot remember who is Zipporah, because she is so obscure and she just had a little stint in the Bible. But her story is very significant. As a matter of fact, she was married to one of the most prominent persons in the Bible, Moses. She was the wife of Moses. And yes, many times women who married to men of such prominence and stature, one of the greatest leaders, one of the greatest men that ever lived, sometimes you live a life of obscurity. But obscurity does not mean inactivity or effectiveness. And we are going to see that this woman, Zipporah, the wife of Moses, even though her life was very obscure, she was not inactive. As a matter of fact, we are going to see her heroism in saving not only Moses' life but also her children's life. If you like the content on this YouTube channel, please remember to subscribe, like, leave a comment and tell a friend about our YouTube channel. Now, as we get back into the text, first I would like to say, I hope that all your mothers had a wonderful and a happy Mother's Day on yesterday. In Exodus chapter 2, we saw the story where Moses, after killing the Egyptian, ran. And he ran in the desert and he reached to a place called Midian. And there in Midian, he stood at a well, and at that well there were some ladies who came to fetch water to feed their father's sheep. And there were some men who tried to frustrate and harass those women from getting water, and Moses stood in the defense of the women, 7 of them, and he protected them, and he drove off the men, and also he protected the women. As a result of that, these ladies, 7 of them, the daughters of Ruel, or the daughters of Jethro, the prince of Media at the time. In some cases the Hebrew is Hobab. He was the prince of Media, and at that time a prince mean usually the head of the tribe become the prince. So they took him back to their father's home, and he explained his situation, and by he proved himself worthy, and seemed as though Jethro and Moses had a wonderful relationship at the very start, to the point where Jethro gave him Zipporah, his wife, to be married. Then by as we go on to chapter 3, Moses had an encounter with God. And there Moses was told by God that he had to go back. God chose him to be the deliverer of Israel. Now, on his way back in Exodus chapter 4, a very bizarre and strange situation happened, where the Bible said when they camped at night that Moses and God had a struggle similar to that of Jacob. Remember when Jacob fought with God in the night and the Lord touched his hip? Here the Bible said that God confronted Moses, and according to the New Living Translation, this is how it reads. Verse 24 of chapter 4 says, on the way to Egypt, at a place where Moses and his family had stopped for the night, the Lord confronted him and was about to kill him. That's in verse 4 of chapter 4. So we see here the Lord was about to kill Moses, and it's a bizarre situation. God confronted him and was about to kill him. I guess this is the trial and the test. But this is where Zipporah, Moses' wife, came into play. Now, whatever the confrontation between God and Moses, Zipporah picked up on it. And with her sense and intuition, she recognized that there was a struggle between Moses and God. And she acted swiftly and decisively. And because of her act and her quickness, she saved the life of her husband Moses and also the life of her 2 sons. This is what the Bible says as we look at this passage of scripture from verse 25. But Moses' wife Zipporah took a flint knife and circumcised her son. She touched his feet with the foreskin and said, now you are the bridegroom of a blood to me. When she said the bridegroom of a blood, she was referring to the circumcision. After that, the Lord left him alone. So we see right here, very interestingly, that Moses knew that the children of Israel were supposed to be circumcised, and he did not circumcise his 2 sons. And as a result of that, God was about to kill Moses for it. And Zipporah stepped in, took a flint knife and cut the foreskin of both her sons. As a result of that, this is what she did. She took the foreskin and she touched the foot of Moses and said, "You are a bridegroom of blood to me." And it is very interesting. It's a very interesting in translation. Some say it could mean a bridegroom of blood, or it could mean you are a blood to me. In other words, what she's saying, you are now a blood covenant to me. Now she, not according to marriage, they were already in blood, but this now make her more connected as a blood covenant to her. And so it is with Jesus Christ. We are in blood covenant with him. The circumcision at the time was a covenant between God and Israel. That's why the children, all the male, were to be circumcised, and Moses did not do that, and God was about to kill him. So if Zipporah did not step in, there would be no Moses to deliver the children of Israel. If Zipporah did not step in, her two sons would have died. That's to show the love and the discernment of a mother. Now later on, after the Exodus, after that situation, it seemed as though that Moses told Zipporah to stay back in Midian, go back to Midian, where he had to go and do what he had to do. Because some commentators say, oh, Moses neglect his wife. But I say, on the contrary, Moses protect his wife. Now in Genesis chapter 2, 3, when Moses, chapter 3, when Moses had the encounter with God, God told him he will bring him back again to this mountain. So Moses had to come back through, and it was dangerous for Moses and his family to go down there. One, what Moses, remember the crime that Moses had, the Bible said all the people who seek his life fled. Two, remember the Jews didn't accept him at first when he tried to protect them. Three, what Moses was going to do would have been very dangerous, and his family might have been attacked by the pharaohs. And remember, all the firstborn in Egypt died because of the plague. And so it was more beneficial for Moses' family to stay with his father-in-law Jethro until he came back through. Now in Exodus chapter 18 we saw where after Moses had delivered the children of Israel and they were passing back through that area close to Midian, that Joseph's father-in-law Jethro went up with Joseph and his children and his wife Zipporah, and there he united them. Now some commentators say that Moses neglected his family and Jethro went up to carry his family to him. But not so, because the meeting between Jethro and Moses was very cordial and they were so happy. They hugged each other and whatever. It was a plan that he will go up, deliver, and then come back and join his family. But people say, oh, he neglected, which is not true. They were so joyous. They went in the tent, they eat and everything like that. And some people say, well, the attention was on Moses and his father-in-law and not his wife. But that's how it was then. So it's Moses was the main character in the story, the plot. Remember, Zipporah, she was a heroine, but she works behind the scene. And later on, there was an encounter in Numbers chapter 12, verses 1, and proceed to the chapter. Miriam and Aaron, Moses' brother and sister, had a quarrel with Moses over his wife and said, call her a Cushite woman. Now, some commentators believe that it was another woman because Zipporah was from Media and how we could call her a Cushite. But there's some controversy over that, because in the Bible you can see Media mentioned in two areas, one near the land of Cush and also one in Arabia area. So, but I believe most likely it was maybe because of her ethnicity, and it could be the color of her skin, color a Cushite. Nevertheless, whatever it is, I don't believe, and some believe it was another wife that Moses took on, which I don't believe. There is no evidence that Moses ever married any other woman or mentioned that Moses took on any other wife, and it is Zipporah. But the problem is, because of who she was and where she was from, Miriam and Aaron took issue with her. Maybe they want to say, Moses, you ain't a true Hebrew, look, you're going to marry to this outside woman. But nevertheless, when they accused that, but also look at it, they brought her in because they want to get something on Moses, because they want to challenge Moses' authority. His brother and his sister saying, you think only God talking to you? But when they did that, God taught them a lesson. God personally came down, brought the three of them together outside the camp and said, let me tell you all something. Let me tell the two of you something. If I wanted to talk to anybody, I would have come and speak to you all. I spoke to Moses personally. And God was upset with Miriam and Aaron for accusing Moses, and also for himself going at his wife. And as a result of that, God went up and Miriam had leprosy for 7 days. And God taught them a lesson. Remember the act that Zipporah did by protecting Moses, by rescuing Moses from the hand of the Lord, by circumcising her 2 children, saving their life and saving Moses' life from the very God who was about to use him. He showed that God is holy, and regardless of who you are, God's holiness cannot be compromised even by a chosen person. And Zipporah understood that. She stood to her husband, she protected her husband, and also she protected her children. What a woman. She was obscure behind the scene, but she was not inactive. Based on what the Bible said, she stood firm, strong, and loving to her husband, because she knew her husband was a man of God. And we see in many instances mothers, wives who stand up for their husband and also protect their children. Sometimes they're not speaking much, they're behind the scenes. Great men, it is always said, behind every great man is a great woman, and behind Moses was a Zipporah. And she was not a person in the front lines or in the headlines or in the highlights like these Hollywood women and Hollywood stars and co-pastor and co-this and co-that and co-this in churches today. She was active behind the scenes, silent behind the scene, but very powerful. And so it is with mothers. Sometimes silent behind the scenes, but very powerful, very protective of their husbands and very protective of their children. The Zipporah attitude, a woman who was able to discern the Spirit of God when Moses could not discern it, the man of God. She was discerning enough to see it, and she acted swiftly to protect both her husband and her children. Imagine if there wasn't any Zipporah, there would not have been no Moses the deliverer. So women, your role is very great as mothers, even as wives, but continue to fulfill your role like a Zipporah. Sometimes you might think that your role or what you're doing goes unnoticed. Sometimes your very children who you might be protecting, sometimes it seems ungrateful or unfaithful. But at the same time, your love and your devotion to your God and to your responsibility to your family will pay off, and God will intervene for you. You saw how spiritual Zipporah was. She stepped in. She was not a Jew. She was from Media. And she understood when she married Moses the Jewish law. And she knew what the God of Moses required. She knew that God sent Moses back to Egypt. She understood the calling of Moses. She understood it and she accepted it and she played the role and she helped Moses. She protected him. Not only that, she acted in a spiritual manner, doing the thing that Moses should have done. Went, circumcised her son to protect the man of God, because she knew that the very God had a job for her husband, and she protected his 2 sons. And because of that, Moses rose up to be the man he was. Because of Zipporah. If it wasn't Zipporah who stepped in, there would not have been no more Moses. God would have killed him. Sometimes we men, we are hard-headed. Sometimes we think we know it. But thank God for a discerning woman, a discerning wife, a discerning mother who do things that when we look at it, if it wasn't for them, our life would not be spared. Mothers, have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoy your Mother's Day on yesterday. And may the Lord's blessing continue to be with you.